Hey, you're watching Half Asian Tarot Queen. I'm Elisa, and I've been doing a bunch of readings this week because the energy has been super intense. And, you know, part of it is just like, for me, just like processing energy. I've been also getting really into listening to, like, I forget what they call it. There's a name for it. There's certain frequencies that like clear your chakras and stuff. It actually really helps. Anyways, I was watching the oh my gosh, I got this one and then I put it back and then it came out again. The United Nations General Assembly. I was listening to that this morning and it was like very impassioned, and I mean, it felt really unprecedented. And you know, I mean, like, we're really at this turning point, and it's like everyone's talking about. It's so funny because I was just doing like readings because yesterday was this big portal, so I did a reading for the 2222 portal, which I'll link here. And then, you know, I had done another reading which also came out yesterday, and it was like, it was all about like how like a new world order is emerging. And it was so crazy because like when I was watching all this stuff, and that's kind of what they were talking about. They're like, yeah, this is like a totally like hinge point in history, and like this new world order and blah, like it was like exactly kind of what I was saying. And the last reading, so it's just like, I mean, I feel like that's kind of why the energy is so intense. You know, it's just like there's this like clash of the old and the new, and it's not really clear how things are gonna go, and things are super unsettled, and there's a lot of emotions. And at the bottom of the deck, we got transformation. This beautiful butterfly. So yeah, like there's definitely this process that we're all going through, and it's like, it's very intense, you know, because sometimes you're just like kind of grinding, like you're doing the grind and you're like just working towards the goal, you know. But this is like this sort of moment when like the apple cart gets upset, and it's just like, oh, now what do we all do, you know, like we all kind of have to adjust. But we got purity, and it's like interesting because this one has like David Bowie eyes, which I think is really interesting. This wolf. And then we got new beginnings, and we got love, like all these flowers blossoming, and we got transformation at the bottom. So that's really interesting to me. And like the purity thing, well, the thing that it makes me think of, so the wolf, you know, and the wolf has two eyes, and this reminds me of, so I just took this yoga series, like an online thing, and it's this channel that's on YouTube that I'll link, called Boho Beautiful, and I love this channel. And they did this series for the new year called Ascension, and there's like this whole thing where, you know, each day is like a different chakra. And when they talked about the sacral chakra, which I feel like I've done a reading about the sacral chakra, which I'll link here, and they were talking about this battle between these two wolves. And there's like a good wolf and a bad wolf, and like we all have this duality within us. And so it's interesting that the eyes have these different colors, you know, because like it kind of talks about, I mean, it kind of like really reflects the whole story of the duality, and we all have this duality within us. And it's like this fable, and it's just sort of like there's a good wolf and a bad wolf, and like the grandfather's telling the grandson about it, and it's just like the grandson's like, well, which wolf is gonna win? And the grandfather's like, well, it depends on which wolf you feed, which is really interesting because I feel like that it kind of came up in one of the readings that I did, and I'm not sure if it's the New World Order one or the 22222 one, but it was like all about, I think it was the 2222 one, just how we're all coming out of this sort of spiritual moment, and we've all adapted, and we're sort of like re-engaging, and it's just sort of like everyone's values have shifted. And so now it's just like, it used to be the loudest, person who like dug in their heels the most and just kept repeating themselves, even if they were like lying and like had bad intentions and like didn't even know what they were doing. It didn't even matter, because like that's because we were all so distracted and not engaged in the world. Like that is the person who came out ahead in the old way of things. But now suddenly, as we're re-engaging, we're figuring out that the entire collective consciousness has shifted. And so this like pattern or this tactic that used to work all the time, now it no longer works. And it's like, because we've all been like feeding a different wolf, maybe because we haven't been distracted by all the chaos and all the interruptions and like all the constant like disruptions in life. Like we're suddenly like, things have changed. And so now everyone's focus has changed. And so like now instead of chaos, we have these like sort of pure intentions. And that is like fueling this new beginning, you know. And what's interesting is just sort of like, it's sort of like the 60s, like make love, not war, you know, because, you know, I mean, like that's kind of, I'm going to get political and people are going to get upset, but like that's kind of like what Vladimir Putin was doing. Like he just kept knocking off these different territories because people would get distracted and eventually like they would lose like the will to like fight back. And so he would just like sneak in and grab it, you know. But this time, like, it's like the world is united. Like they're like, no. I mean, it was like really compelling in the United Nations General Assembly, because like every nation was getting up and they're like, you can't do this, this is like morally wrong and it's against international laws and we will stop it and blah. But like the speeches were fiery and like people were like, I mean, I was just like, wow, you know, because I feel like you haven't seen that kind of fire and brimstone passionate in a while, because everyone's been so distracted by all the distractions, you know. So it's really interesting. Like I feel like this is really an omen of, you know, that we stepped through a portal and like the world has now changed. Maybe it is like on more of a foundation of love than like war. Like let's hope so, you know. I mean, we'll see how things turn out, but it definitely, I got the impression from the United Nations thing and from the initial response, it's like he's like super willful for sure, you know, but like his calculations are based on how the world was before the pandemic. And now what we're all finding out is that suddenly the entire collective consciousness has shifted priorities and the old playbook doesn't work anymore, which is wild. And it's just like all of a sudden it's like, oh, now he's out on a limb, you know. So at the bottom we got Introspection, which is the Virgo card. Hermit, like it's a card of like spiritual awakening, which is interesting because it falls out right under the Transformation card. And it's sort of like what I was just talking about, like the result of all of this spiritual development is that now, and then when I put the deck down, like this, this falls out. The mystic and the universe. So it's just like the result, what happens is that like there's like a new law in town, you know, and like the old playbook doesn't work anymore. It's so crazy that just fell out, you know. So okay, so we got the Spirit of Swords. So it's kind of like a harsh truth and like cutting free from like stuff that's been holding you back, and like it comes out right under the Purity card. And also this card has been coming out in all the readings this week. Like they did one called think it was called like You Gotta Lance the Boil, and it was all about confronting whatever it is that's like holding you back and like cutting yourself free, you know, and being liberated. Like the Six of Wands is like this victory over whatever it was, you know, leading into this new beginning, you know. And we have the Six of Pentacles, where like things are being brought into balance. It's like victory and like rebalance, you know, like a balance of power almost, you know, which is really interesting, you know, if you're going to bring it to the whole Russia-Ukraine analogy, because like at any other time, like a country like Ukraine would just get crushed, but suddenly everyone's just like, no, the whole world stands with Ukraine and you cannot take them down, you know. And so it's like this total rebalance of power, where suddenly like being this military giant is like not gonna automatically allow you to get your way. Like we're at the Two of Wands, like there's a fork in the road. Like suddenly there's like this divergent path, you know. And like it's sort of like you're either going to go one way or the other. Like you're either going to be on the side of freedom, or you're going to go down the other road, you know. And you gotta choose one path or the other, the good wolf or the bad. There's no in between. Like it's like one or the other. So it's pretty wild. Pretty wild. It's like, it feels very like Star Wars. I have a old reading about that, like something about Jedi training, which I'll link up here too, from a while ago. Okay, I'm going to Everyday Tarot. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting moment in time. And it's very inspiring and very unsettling, and like a lot of emotion. We're kind of snowed in here today, so oh my gosh, that came out in yesterday's reading too. There's a lot of messages coming in that are like super repeating. Okay. All right. So at the bottom, we have the Devil. So this toxic situation, and there's definitely been all this stuff coming through about like breaking free from a toxic situation or healing toxic situation. All like links, one of them up here. But we have Strength, the Eight of Wands, the Four of Pentacles, and the Three of Cups. So this is really interesting, because under this having to cut yourself free from whatever has been holding you back, like some harsh truth being revealed, and like having to choose between the good wolf and the bad wolf, like we have Strength. So it's like whatever, it's gonna require you to really be firm, you know, in cutting yourself free from whatever this is. But like this person is like taming a lion. But I think, and this came through in the message yesterday too, that like the thing that like really strikes me about this particular Strength card is that there's like this it's like there's 3 pentacles here, you know, like it's like she's got this solid foundation in herself. Like she doesn't need like a foundation to stand upon. Like she is the foundation, and that's what makes her strong, you know. And so whoever this is kind of like cutting herself free, you know. She's like establishing like, no, I am the good wolf, you know, and you will respect me, you know. And so then we have this message of victory coming in. Like there's this message coming in, like things are changing. This new beginning is coming through because she's cut herself free from whatever it is that's been holding her back, you know. And then we have the Four of Pentacles. So this is kind of like someone who's like holding on, you know, they're clutching onto their last coin and like sort of being held back by fear. But whatever that fear is, it's like coming into balance. It's sort of like nobody ever stands up to Russia because Russia is so intimidating, and like so people are like oppressed and staying where they are because of fear. But like whatever that force is coming into balance, and we're sort of like finding our tribe. So it's just like we're either going to go one way or the other. You know, there's no middle ground, but you're going to find your tribe by doing that, by like being in alignment with your truth. Like you're either going to be like the good wolf or the bad wolf, and you have to decide like which team you're on, because like it's sort of like there's this toxic stuff going around. Like there's this war that's about to happen, you know. It's like Star Wars, literally, you know. It's just like you're either on the good side or the bad side. Like you can't just, and that was a thing that they kept saying in the United Nations thing, you know, like you can't just be a bystander. Like this is too serious. Like you have to take sides. Like you have to decide which team you're on, because that's how serious this is. And that's kind of what's coming through here. So it's really, really interesting. Okay, I'm gonna go to Queen of the Moon Oracle and pick a couple final cards. But yeah, it's like definitely, it's like a revolutionary time. And like we've been getting readings about that too. Like I think there's one called Viva la Revolution. You know, it's a revolutionary time, which is like a time of like super inspiration and like finding your tribe and like passion and like transformation and, you know, all of that. So it can be really inspiring, you know, but it can also be like really scary, you know. It just depends on which. Interesting. So at the bottom we got the snow moon, purity, which is interesting because that's two messages of purity coming in, and then like the snow. And you know what's crazy is that today here where I am, we're snowed in. Like we can't go outside, and it's probably gonna be like that tomorrow too. So that's a really weird, yeah. So we're just like under this blanket of snow, under this blanket of purity, and like, you know, kind of having to commit like one way or the other. Like there's no in between. Like you have to decide like where your heart is, where your foundation is, and you have to like lay it down. Like you have to commit to it, you know. And that's going to lead to like blossoming, and it's going to lead to creation, like new beginnings and new inspirations, and it's going to lead to peace. I love this one. This one came out recently too, but she's got this bubble of protection around her, you know, because she's in alignment with her highest good, like with her dharma, and so she has the protection of the universe around her. So beautiful. So yeah, it's a really good message for today, and it's like yeah, like I said, like it's a critical moment in time that's really like I was saying in the thing yesterday, like we're gonna look back at this moment. Like right now it seems super overwhelming because there's so much emotion that's just like everywhere, and it's like intense, you know, and so it's hard to see, but like it's like really a critical like break point, you know, and we're gonna look back at this moment as like a critical turning point in the history of the world, you know. So choose your alliances carefully right now, because it's kind of like you're gonna be on one team or the other, you know. It's like, do you want to be on the dark side, or do you want to be the change, you know? It's up to you.